Welcome to Delphi Dispatches. I'm Martina, your trusty guide through the pages of Camp Half-Blood and beyond. Grab your camp shirts, ready your weapons, and let's embark on this epic adventure together. This is Delphi Dispatches. We are back for another episode of Delphi Dispatches. I'm so happy that you joined me today, as it is the week of the premiere. I'm so excited. We're gonna get the first 2 episodes of Percy Jackson and the Olympians this Wednesday. But before we go into all the trailers and stuff I will do, let's talk about the news we got this week. The news you're gonna hear are until the 15th of December, because I'm recording this on the 16th. So that means one of the premieres will be next week. But let's start out with the premiere announcement. On the 28th of November, it was announced that Percy Jackson and the Olympians will have 2 premiere events. One in New York City at the Met on December 13th, and one in London on December 16th. But before we get into more things that happened at the premiere, let's see what other news we got so far. On the 4th of December, there was a post on Threads by Mythomagic Inc., which is the production company of Rick and Becky Riordan, saying that the character of Argus will not be appearing in season 1 due to budget restraints, and also the fact that the scenes where he would have appeared were already quite crowded. The next news actually has nothing to do with the series at the moment. It's graphic novel news. On the 6th of December, we got the cover reveal for the House of Hades graphic novel. Now, personally, I'm not the biggest fan of the art of the graphic novels, at least the ones I've seen, which is only the Lightning Thief graphic novel, but I'm telling you, it looks amazing. It was announced that it will be released on the 24th of September 2024, so around the same time as Wrath of the Triple Goddess will release the next Percy Jackson novel, so we got multiple Percy Jackson releases next year. I'm looking forward to this, and also House of Hades is one of my favorite books of the whole Percy Jackson universe. It's adapted by Robert Venditti, I hope I'm saying that name right, and the art is by Orpheus Collar, who also worked on the other Percy Jackson and the Olympians and Heroes of Olympus graphic novels. Now for the cover itself, it's like divided in 2 halves. The upper half has the doors of death in the background, which are grayish, and it's predominantly a red theme. We see Percy and Annabeth in front, covered in the death mist. You know, if you read the book, you know what that means. And they look skeleton zombie-ized. You can check it out online. In my case, I looked it up on readriordan.com if you're interested. Then we also see that all over their body, there are like these gold threads, which I interpreted like, we know that the god's blood, the ichor, is golden. So I was wondering, what does that mean? Am I not remembering something that happened in the book? So let's see where this comes in. And on the bottom side of the cover, which is upside down, like a mirror image to Percy and Annabeth, and there we see the other 5 demigods of the prophecy, who are like all powered up, and Nico, who has the Diocletian scepter in the hand, and they also have the doors of the dead in the background. And I find it interesting that Percy and Annabeth are like right side up and the others are flipped, because if you would think that them being where they are, not to spoil anything, you would think that they were the ones flipped upside down. That's that for graphic novel news for now. Let's get back to all the TV series stuff. Also on the 6th of December, there was an interview with TV Insider where James Bobbin, the director of the first 2 episodes, said that they were inspired by E.T., which I really like. And as a European Percy Jackson fan, I'm somewhat upset about the next news. On the 7th of December, it was announced that there would be some advanced screenings in 10 different US cities, all throughout the 16th to the 19th. And I was like, for once, I would like to live in the US. And as far as I know, there are no advanced screenings in Europe, aside probably from the UK premiere, where they probably showed the first 2 episodes. On the 8th of December, we got a lot of interviews. Most of them were with the trio. And I'm gonna talk about like a few things from those interviews. Of course, I'm not going to recite all of the information of the interviews. I'm gonna tell you where the interviews is from. You can look it up online if you want to see or read the whole interview. The first interview is with CTV Your Morning. In that interview, Walker said he was nervous but also excited to be portraying Percy, and the most important thing for him is that it was a faithful adaptation, since he's also a Percy Jackson fan himself and doesn't want to let down the other fans. Leah said for training and preparing for her role, she read the books, and it was quite difficult because the books were written from Percy's perspective, so she had to pick out Annabeth's story and figure out how Annabeth is feeling in this moment. And that's how she stood her ground and wanted to bring the same energy, strength, but also vulnerability to the character. Arian is the GOAT. We know it from all over social media. He talked about how they made the sailor legs for the show, that what you see were camel pants and goat legs, but what he wore were skin-tight motion capture pants and then tights with cotton padding so it looked fluffier under, and the cargo shorts over that. And they all said they did a lot of cool new stuff like wire stunts and motion capture things. And they love that Rick is so heavily involved with everything that has to do with this series. Leah specifically said that the connection with him is a bonus because he's so nice and humble. And she also talked about Becky, calling her Miss Becky, which I find freaking adorable, that she's amazing. And throughout everything, like the controversy about casting her, they were super supportive. The next interview was with Breakfast Television, where Walker gives like a summary of what Percy Jackson is about. And I just picked up one flaw. He says Percy is 14. In the first book he's 12. Well, we can let it slide. They probably did a lot of interviews that day. Leah said that stepping into this world was something great and she never thought that she would have this new opportunity. And she wanted to give it her best work. And that she just wants to make Rick proud. I love it. And Ariane talks lovingly about the set. He marvels over the volume stage and British Columbia as a whole where they filmed. While Walker talks about the pressure that he felt sometimes, which was almost instantly cancelled out by the support of the fans. And lastly, on that interview, Leah also said that the fans will love the amount of detail that's put into all of the series. And then we have one more interview with CP24 Breakfast. There we get a little sneak peek, which we haven't actually seen that much before. It's the scene from the Met. We got it a bit in the trailer, but it's like right after that, after Percy remembers being there with his mom already. He says mom, like out loud, and Nancy, the bully, like bullies him like, oh, I'm here, sweetie. And Mrs. Dodds is there reprimanding him even though he didn't do anything, while Nancy fake apologizes because Percy is special. And that's when Mr. Brunner like gets involved and gets gets passively angry at Nancy and gives Percy the pen, but before he could take it, it cuts away to the interview itself, where Walker talks about the most challenging things about the fight scenes, which is that it's half fighting and half emotion based, those fight scenes, that he has to concentrate on those two things. Ariane said that people should relate to the story, especially like if you look at the background actors, that you could be any one of those demigods, or those demigods could be any person, right? And Leah talked about how she brushed up on her Greek mythology for the role, and that actually her brother got her into reading the Percy Jackson books. And she also wants to read more in the future about these topics. And when asked about who they want to portray one day, Arian said he wants to be Spider-Man, specifically Spider-Man India. I think we saw Spider-Man India in the newest animated Spider-Man movie. I love it. I could totally see Arian being portraying him in the live action version. But for like Greek gods, they would portray, Arian said Hermes, because he loves Hades Town. Absolutely the right answer. Leah said Athena, and Walker said Poseidon, but he justified it because, and I quote, I kind of have to, right? Then on the 10th of December, we got 3 new posters from our monsters. Those are in quotation marks. The first one is Medusa. It's Jessica Parker Kennedy. I really like her. But the thing is, if I talk too fast and want to say her name, I sometimes say Sarah Jessica Parker Kennedy. So I combine those 2 names. If I ever do that and don't realize it while editing, please ignore it. Well, Medusa, she looks great. And from what we heard throughout a lot of the interviews that got released in the last few days, it's gonna be different than in the books, but different in a good way. The second poster was from Electo/Mrs. Dodds, aka Megan Mullally. Also, like in Fury form, she looks incredible. I love everything about it. And the last one is the Minotaur, and we love it. He doesn't have his nose ring, but he has 2 ear piercings. I can forgive that, and I'm so excited to see the Minotaur in action. Now, the next few days, we're getting more and more news every day. So now we're gonna go into the 11th of December. We started out the day with a little Insta reel or video, I don't remember what it was, Greek Mythology 101 with our trio. It's like a 1-minute video of Annabeth/Leah asking the 2 boys. Well, she's giving the name of a mythical creature and they're like describing it. And I love it because, of course, Annabeth would already know all the answers. That's why she's asking the boys. And this is also the first time we get a really good look at some of these mythical creatures. I'm gonna just list them off and tell you what they said about them. So the first one was centaurs. I have man, have horse. We see a picture of Chiron, and they're good healers. Next one, the Furies. Their names are Electo, Tisiphone, and Megara. They have wings and whips and are Hades servants. Then Satyrs, which is Grover. Walker said, your worst bovine nightmare. And I didn't know that goats would fall under bovine. I thought bovine were just cows and cow-adjacent animals, but I like it. Then we have Medusa. We get a really cool glimpse at Jessica Parker Kennedy as Medusa. She's one of the Gorgon sisters. She was cursed by Athena after she was caught with Poseidon in her temple. And her gaze can turn you into stone. The Minotaur is half man, half bull. And Grover says it's your second worst bovine nightmare. And he wears tidy-whities, which I love that they adapted this particular detail from the books. It's just hilarious, I think. And we have Echidna, which is the mother of all monsters, like the Hydra, the Chimera, and our next monstrous being, Cerberus. Cerberus is a 3-headed Rottweiler and guards the gates to the underworld. Next up, we have the Chimera. It's a lion, snake, goat thing. It's poisonous and breathes fire, so best of both worlds, I guess. Then we have the Oracle, and this is the first time we see the Oracle in any promotional material. It's the spirit of Delphi trapped in the body of a human. It looks like exactly how I imagined, even creepier than I imagined from the books. And the last one they mentioned were the Fates. The 3 sisters of destiny. And if they make eye contact with you and cut a thread, that means you'll die soon. And I added one thing because I'm always really proud that I know their names, because this is one of my fun facts that whirl around my head. Their names are Lachesis, Atropos, and Clotho. As always, I hope I'm saying those Greek words right. Also on the 11th of December, there was a live taping of the Happy, Sad, Confused podcast with Josh Horowitz in New York City with the cast, well, the trio, and Rick and Becky. It was at 92nd Street Y, and it was like live with a live audience, and it was also streamed online, which is how I watched it. And I'm telling you, my heart was racing the whole time. There were parts where I was crying, but in general, I was just so happy about everything. There was like this brief introduction before they came in, and housekeeping, like no video recording, all those things, no flash photography, you know the drill. And first up, they showed the trailer, and then there was like the real proper introduction of Josh Horowitz and the guests, and he said he has already seen the entire show. If I could switch places with one person in the world, it would be him watching those 8 episodes. The first question he asked was, how did we get here? And Rick actually says, I don't remember, and asks Becky, which I love. And she summarizes that everything started in 2019 when they started pitching it, because it was right around the time where Disney bought Fox, who held the rights to the Percy Jackson movie/TV adaptation. And then the audition process, like after they somewhat finished writing, the audition process started. And it was important to Rick and Becky that everything feels authentic. We also got the information that Logan Lerman, so the Percy from the Not So Good movies, he had a message to Walker. It was really nice. It was about enjoying everything and being ready for all the blue food he would eat over the next 2 years. Then Walker replied and said he actually sent Logan a DM once on Instagram because Walker watched Perks of Being a Wallflower, which Logan Lerman is in, and he just sent him a DM about how good he was and how he liked it, which I love it. I just love it. And then they showed special footage, the Minotaur chase. It was probably the same they showed at New York Comic Con, but of course we couldn't see it at home. And the thing is, they blacked out the screen, but there was still audio for like 5 seconds, and I was like super excited that I could at least hear the audio, but then they cut off the audio and I was like, oh man. After that, they talked about this scene, about filming stunts and the volume stage, and they were asked what the hardest ones were to film, and they unanimously said the water scenes, which I can totally see because water. And then Aryan talked about learning how to walk like a goat and talked about the training he had to go through, and he also made a demonstration and I loved it. It looks so cool. And he says now he has calves of steel. And that's when the other two kids said, in every interview they do, he tries to bring in the fact that he has calves of steel. I mean, he's proud of them and he should be. A goosebump moment they had was like first time walking into camp, seeing those wild owls we saw in the very first trailer who were just randomly there, and they thought like, yep, we're blessed by Athena, this is gonna be good. And then they showed another scene. It was Capture the Flag, and this time they had no like 5-second audio I could hear. And after that they mentioned the famous guest stars. In specific, they mentioned Lin-Manuel Miranda. I'm always happy when people talk about him. Walker said, yeah, he knew him, like he watched Hamilton, and that he was very, very chill. And then Leah told a funny story she and Lin had. One time while filming, she was wearing a Nirvana shirt, and Lin was like, hey, cool, I love that band. And Leah did not know that Nirvana was a band. She thought it was like a brand or something. So Lin was like, oh my god, probably feeling old. Then later when they were like both in the makeup trailer, she got schooled. Lin was like blasting all Nirvana songs like on loop, which I was like, they have a lot of songs. If she says on loop and was like, yeah, I've heard this one a lot already, like today, I was like, first of all, how long are they in the makeup chairs? And is he really like blasting all, or just like the most well-known ones or his favorite ones? But I love this little banter they have. This shows you that the adults are not like patronizing the kids because, oh yeah, we're adults, we know better. But actually these kids pull the most weight of all. And then Walker said about a scene with Dior, who plays Clarice. It was like right after Capture the Flag, when he breaks Clarice's spear and she runs towards him and screams. Walker said he was terrified when she did this. I'm like, yeah, you should be terrified of her. I'm telling you, I'm not the biggest Clarice stan in the books, but Dior Goodjohn makes me love Clarice on a level I did not know I wanted. And the series hasn't even come out yet, so what? There was a question of something about characters, and Leah was like, I'm sorry, did you say chiropractors? And I laughed out loud, and it was like in the middle of the night here, and I was like, oh no, I don't want to wake my roommates. They were also asked the question if they could play any other character, who would they play? Walker said, I don't want to say Poseidon, I want to be Toby Stevens, which is the actor who plays Poseidon, and I love that answer. And backing off of that answer, Aryan says Mr. D, but Jason Mantzoukas as Mr. D. And if they say that, we know those performances are gonna be iconic and good and just incredible. And Leah said Medusa, which Medusa is growing on me. I mean, I already liked Medusa, Medusa as her story, but the themes of monstrosity and everything they're gonna go and bring into the series even more is gonna be like a total game changer. And then there was a question of if Percy would team up with a superhero, who would it be? And he was like, of course, Spider-Man, because Percy is from New York and Spider-Man is also from New York. And then there was a question of who would win in a fight, Percy versus Harry Potter. And Walker was like, there is no discussion. He was like, that's not even a question. And that it would not even be a fight. And Percy would slay. I'm like, yes. Yes, say it out loud. And then there was the question which episode or scene the people are most excited about. Becky and Rick both said 5, and specifically there's gonna be a Grover and Ares moment, which I know wasn't in the books, so it's gonna be great. And the cast, like all over the board, said they're looking forward for the Ares fight. There was also a question, I don't remember the exact question, but I think it was something along the lines of where do we find magic in the real world, asking as a new adult or something like that. And it was like, oh, throughout the whole crowd. And Rick gave the best answer, the public library. As someone who's currently working in the library, I love it. And he says you can find magic there everywhere. And Rick and Becky also said that Percy and Annabeth and all the characters are basically family members now to them. And that Percabeth is based on Rick and Becky, and they said they don't have this cute of a ship name. Their ship name is Brick, and if you've read the second series, you know who we ship Brick with, right? And the final question was about the future plans, and Rick was quite vague but hopeful. He was like, the auguries are good, which is also always good, and he also said they started writing the outline of season 2, but it's not been greenlit yet. I'm so hopeful, and I'm pretty positive that we will get a season 2, and I'm so excited already. And at the end they showed the first 10 minutes of episode 1, so 3 minutes more than at Comic-Con, and again I didn't get to see it. Then on the 12th of December, when we're on the next day, we got a 5-minute live on Instagram with Rick, where he answered the questions at the Meta headquarters in New York City. We found out that there's gonna be a Sally and Poseidon flashback. This is fan service at its finest. And throughout that day, the cast was roaming New York. They were at the Empire State Building. Walker was wearing his Percy Jackson armor, like the one he filmed in. I was like, yes, I love it. And in the evening, also Dior and Charlie joined them in New York City. The 13th of December, also a really big day in Percy Jackson series history. It started off with a blog post from Rick talking about a few questions that were not picked for the live stream. He was like, oh my god, in 1 week the first 2 episodes of the series will come out. And he also said they visited the 600th floor in the Empire State Building because he's the only one who knows the secret to getting up there, and no, he's not sharing it with us. They also said that the day after that they would already go to London for promo stuff. He talked again a bit about there's no Argus because of budget and the episode would be too crowded. There was a question of, are you gonna adapt Heroes of Olympus? And he was like, this is the future because this series comes first and builds the foundation for Heroes of Olympus, so there's no thought about that yet. He was also asked if he was nervous about the reviews, and he said somewhat, because he's making it for the book fans and he's already used to reviews from books, publishing books, although a series is gonna be totally different. And then he was asked for blue food recommendations to eat during watch parties, and Rick said, I can cook, and said I don't know, Skittles. And then I was like, there are no blue Skittles, and I googled, and there are only blue Skittles were in the tropic variety, so there are no blue Skittles in the normal or the sour version. Blue tropic Skittles it is. I don't know if I can find those here, but I'm gonna figure something out. Otherwise it's gonna be blue gummy bears or something. And one of the other questions was, what would happen if Riptide ran out of ink? And he said, Riptide has magical ink that never runs out. And as far as we know, Percy wouldn't even think to ride with Riptide. So then we got the short promo video on Instagram where it was like 1 week and a lot of scenes we know, some from different angles, and there was like no dialogue. It was just music. We also got an ABC News interview with Rick where he talked about being a teacher and that the messages of the story is about self-acceptance and also the hero's journey. My personal friends here know when I say hero's journey, it has a special meaning for us as well. Then also on the 13th in the evening, it was red carpet premiere time, but actually the carpet was blue because Percy Jackson, of course, and they premiered in or at the Met, the Metropolitan Museum of Art. And this is where everything started. I think Rick said that in one of the interviews that he had there. This is where everything started, so it's the perfect place for the premiere. And I'm going to tell you guys, they look so amazing. Everyone looked so amazing. I was like live refreshing Getty Images to get the like earliest versions of all the pictures, and I picked a few of them out who looked like gorgeous, and I want to talk about it. First of all, Leah. Oh my god, I'm just saying love. I love her dress. It really gives like Athena vibes. It has this gold to bluish silver at the bottom, and at the very bottom it's black, and they are like shapes and geometrical stuff, but actually it also reminded me like a bit of a spider's web, which is like so ironic that the daughter of Athena would have something resembling a spider web on her dress. Then let's talk about our boys. Arian wearing this gorgeous green suit presenting nature, and he also has this really cute necklace. It on a closer, I think it was a video, it looked kind of like jade. It was like a ring, and once he was like playing with it, and I think he wore it in a few other interviews. I really like that necklace. And Walker, of course, wore blue and black, and I loved the combination. I loved his suit. Then another gorgeous person was Diorgo John, aka Clarice LaRue. She looked fierce. She had this gorgeous red dress, and I'm gonna tell you guys, if looks could kill, but in a good way, she can slay on the red carpet and you in a fight. All the women look elegant and beautiful, like Jessica Parker Kennedy, Susan Cryer, Virginia Cole, all of them, they looked amazing. Then we had Clint Turman, who was playing Chiron. He had this really cool hat. It looked like a cowboy hat, and I think it had rattlesnake tails on them, because in one interview he was like shaking his head like very fast and it sounded like a rattlesnake. It's so cool. Then we had Adam Copeland in a red suit, and he also had a really cool hat, and it really gives Ares. And I love that the actor playing Ares and the actress playing Ares' daughter both wore red, matching, fiery, fierce. I love it. Then we have Timothy Amundsen. I love his mustache. It looks so cool. And I don't know if it's the cane he always uses or if it was a special cane he used that day. It looked so good with his outfit. I love it. Then we had Rick and Becky, and they were so cute together. They looked very nice, and they were just like always together, and I love it. Some of the other things I wanted to mention were Azriel Delman, I hope I'm saying his name right, who is playing young Percy, and he is so freaking cute. And he wore also like this blue suit with gold accents at the fronts, and it was so beautiful. Speaking of beautiful and elegant, Olivier Morgan had also this dark red velvety dress. Stunning. We also had a few pictures of Walker with his family. Everyone was dressed in blue, which was like, yes, that is a family I like. There were a lot of like other people and influencers. Some of them I didn't know, but one person I do know because I follow him online on TikTok. It's Mason. I don't know what his last name is, but if you Google like Percy Jackson Mason on TikTok, he's gonna come up, and he had this really cool blue suit and a trident pin, and he was like, yes, this is how you dress on a Percy Jackson premiere. Some of the people that were not there, which I was, I don't know, surprised or disappointed by, I guess, or at least slightly disappointed. To say they were not there was at least they were on none of the pictures I saw, and didn't read anything that they were there. One of them being Toby Stevens playing Poseidon. I'm like, the Poseidon not being there at premiere of the Son of Poseidon's TV series. I'm like, why? But they probably have their reasons. Another person was Lin-Manuel Miranda, who wasn't there. Then J. Duplass was not there. And I also didn't see Megan Mullally. Those were like the top 4 people I did not see on any of the pictures or videos. On this this premiere evening, I saw so many fellow podcasters and PTO Twitter and Instagram people I follow for a while now and look up to having so much fun, and I'm like, yes, you guys, you put the work in it, you deserve everything you got. And just to mention a few, Mike from the Newest Olympian, then Seaweed Brain was there, Robert from the Damn Meme page, Monster Donut podcast, all these people. I hope there are probably a lot of other people, but those are the few I'm remembering off the top of my head. You guys, you slayed, you had fun, and you deserved everything of this. Then on the 14th of December, the press embargo was lifted, which means a lot of interviews dropped at once. I did my best to watch most of them. I'm not gonna cover all the things they said, because I'm only covering important stuff mostly. Mostly we had the trio bantering, funny quizzes, and interviewing each other, but we also had a few drops on Instagram. For example, we got a 1 minute long video straight from the series, probably first episode. It's Grover coming to the cabin. By the way, I love the humor in the show, and Percy kind of seeing Grover for the first time as a satyr. You're gonna love it. The second clip they released was, I mentioned it in one of the interviews earlier, it was them at the Met, Nancy bullying Percy, Mrs. Dodds being strict, and then Mr. Brunner gives Percy the pen. He gives him Riptide. Yes, this is a pen. This is a pen. And we also got a reel of the world premiere, stage things, which also was cool. And in one of those videos, in the comments, the Percy Jackson Instagram account commented, the soundtrack releases on December 22nd. So next week's music is gonna be from the soundtrack, I can guarantee you. I'm probably gonna have to do multiple, because I'm pretty sure I cannot choose which one I will put on the playlist. And on that day, in the evening, in the night actually, Jason Mantzoukas was at Jimmy Kimmel Live. I'm telling you, this guy is freaking funny. He told them about kids who found out he's gonna play Mr. D, teaching him what he has to know about Mr. D, giving him bullet points, Mr. D is this and this and this, and you have to, yes. Those people are the ones that should give the notes. The kids that know these characters the best. Now, on the 15th, we got an exclusive interview of Entertainment Weekly. I'm not going to go into the details of the interview, but I'm going to say that there were also 5 great new pictures included in this interview. One of them being Percy in Poseidon's cabin, Grover and Annabeth, just Grover and Annabeth, Percy outside the Met. Then we have Ares and the trio, Annabeth and Percy after capture the flag on the beach. I think those were it, yes. Then on the Disney Plus YouTube channel, we got a behind the scenes video, a bit mixed in with Walker finding out he's Percy and being interviewed how it feels. And we got also a lot of interviews from the world premiere. On Instagram, they also released another video. It is Percy meeting Mr. D for the first time, and here we get something very iconic. Mr. D saying, Peter Johnson is here. Yes, if you know anything about Mr. D, this is very important that he calls him Peter Johnson. We get Persassy at his best, and Jason Mantzoukas it's just great. And especially when Percy calls him Your Majesty. Yes, this is how you talk to a god, even with sass. We also had an interview, an interview compilation from comicbook.com with Liam Crowley from the red/blue carpet. And my highlight of those interviews was first, Dior Goodjohn and Adam Copeland meeting for the first time. And second, that the trio, and especially the guys, recognized Liam. Yeah, I recognize you. And I'm like, yes, this is the relationship of actors and fans/interviewers we want to see. Now this next part, I'm not 100% sure if this information is accurate. It's about the release times. So these were not officially confirmed by Disney, but they're based on when other series have released in the last few years, which would be 12:01 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Just do the conversion rate to wherever you are. For me, I think it will be around 9 or 10. I'm not sure if I'm converting right. Never mind. And then this thing I'm gonna probably include in all the future episodes, at least dealing with the series itself, the current Rotten Tomatoes score. Since the series has not come out yet at the point of this recording, we only have the average tomato meter, so the critics, because the audience has not seen it yet. And it has a 96% at the moment. And I'm so happy. And I'm yes, this is what we deserve, and this is right. So the next part I recorded earlier this week, so maybe I'm gonna sound a bit different, but I'm doing my best to level out the recordings. Now it's time for Demigod Discussions. This week, it's happening this week, you guys. The first 2 episodes of Percy Jackson and the Olympians will be released, and I'm more than excited about it. But before we can enjoy what we have waited for so long, let's look back on the last year and see how they have teased us. What I'm trying to say is, let's have a look at the teasers and trailers we have gotten so far. As of this recording, we have 4 teasers and 1 official trailer. The first of them was released on the 11th of September 2022 and is about 53 seconds long. The filming began only in the summer of 2022, so we were extremely lucky to get the teaser this early. We start out with the iconic opening lines of the first book. "Look, I didn't want to be a half-blood." There are some shots of trees, a signpost that points to the stables, archery, and the cabins. And then Percy tells us that being a half-blood is dangerous. It's scary, and most of the time, it gets you killed. From a bag, Percy pulls out a leather necklace, and we see him walking alone through the camp. He's wearing the empty necklace and the iconic orange Camp Half-Blood t-shirt. While he is on his way to his new cabin, all the other campers are staring at him. And we have some shots of some random owls, which we got to know from Rick that these were just coincidentally in the woods of Vancouver where they filmed. We also see presumably Clarice in battle armor with a lot of campers around her. Then Percy advises us to run away while we still can, because once we know who we are, they will sense it too, and then they'll come for us. Then there is a dark shot, and suddenly lightning illuminates Percy's face in the rain, and at the end we get the title card, Percy Jackson and the Olympians, original series streaming soon. The second trailer we got was released on the 18th of August 2023, aka Percy's birthday, so almost 1 year after the first one, and it's titled We've Been Expecting You. The music in the background is totally different from the first teaser. We got Percy coming out of an elevator, now with beads on his necklace. This is a really important detail, and those of you who read the books already know what it is about. We also get an epic shot of Adam Copeland as Ares, and in the background we hear Sally Jackson telling Percy that the stories she told him about Greek gods and half-bloods are all real. There are some shots of camp, like Percy entering a cabin, and some demigods crossing a suspension bridge. We also see Grover with his goat legs, the trio leaving the camp, and Annabeth fighting a monster. Then we have a voice, presumably one of the gods, saying, "Percy Jackson, we've been expecting you." I'm not 100% sure, but I think this is also the first time we found out that the series will premiere on December 20th, 2023. We also get the title card again, and we hear a cover of Riptide by Vance Joy, which is a big deal for the fandom since Percy Jackson's sword is also named Riptide, and this song has always been linked to the story because of that. You know, every time I watch these trailers and teasers, I'm really emotional because the things I read in these books are coming to the screen live, and I can't be more happy about it. And especially the next teaser is, I think, the first one I really cried while I watched it. This teaser is the longest of the teasers we've gotten so far. It's 1 minute 34, and it was released on the 19th of September 2023. And with almost 9 million views, this one is the most watched video on the Disney Plus YouTube channel. Speaking of most watched on the Disney Plus YouTube channel, 3 of the top 5 videos on that channel are Percy Jackson related. So I think Disney Plus knows that we like it so far. Teaser starts out with the Riptide cover and a view of Manhattan. We see Percy on a school road trip to a museum. There we also see Percy's dyslexia visualized, and he also tells us that he is a troubled kid. He and his best friend Grover are getting bullied throughout the first few scenes of the teaser, and then we see Percy being attacked by a monster. After that we cut to him and his mom talking about what happened when Grover suddenly appears. Percy, being very confused, rightfully so, asks Grover why there is half a goat in his pants, and we pan down and see that Grover has goat legs. And here we get one of the funny bits throughout the series, because we have to remind ourselves this is originally a book for kids and we have to have fun. And Grover's retort to half a goat in his pants is, Now, the important thing is not to panic, which, mwah, I love it. I love it. Then we cut the shots of the camp and see Mr. Brunner, aka Chiron now, in full centaur form for the first time. Here we can also see that he has some sort of leg brace on one of his back legs, and Percy is also fighting with other campers on the beach. When Chiron explains that Zeus's master lightning bolt was stolen and that he has to retrieve it, and that would be his quest. We also see a shot of the underworld where Hades is walking towards Grover and Percy. There's a quick glimpse of the Garden Gnome Emporium, the Lotus Hotel, and Ares, as well as some shots of the fields of Asphodel in the underworld. We see a few Persebeth moments like them hugging and them in Waterland. After that, we have a few scenes from the Gateway Arch, we see Echidna, and then we see Percy falling into the Mississippi. And the last few shots of this teaser are Sally driving Gabe's car and the accident with the Minotaur, and Percy subsequently fighting that Minotaur. Here we also get a line from Sally to Percy, which I adore. It's, "You have to be brave now." And I just love the relationship Percy and Sally have with each other. After a cryptic clue from the Percy series socials on the 10th of November, we got the first and for now the only full-length official trailer on the 16th of November this year. We started at the Met, where we see a back and forth of young Percy with his mom and current Percy on a school trip. He is looking at the statue of Perseus, and Sally tells him why he is named after this hero. During this explanation, we also get 6 quick shots of what's to come. These are the following in order. The first one is the trio walking through presumably the fields of Asphodel / the underworld. The second one is Percy pulling blue candy out of his bag. The third one is Grover being pulled into a pit. The fourth one is the Gateway Arch with a hole in it. The fifth one is Percy in full armor running through the woods, and the last one is an underwater shot of Percy. And one final shot in this segment is Percy in the rain. Then we get Disney Plus Presents. After that, we see Percy and Grover being bullied, and Percy says that his life is like a puzzle with half the wrong pieces. We also see a black Pegasus, which I only can assume is blackjack, hopefully. We see that Percy gets a pen from Mr. Brunner, and Sally telling Percy that the stories are real. And then we get a few glimpses of some iconic monsters we're gonna see this season, like the back of the head of Medusa and Cerberus, which, might I say, Cerberus looks so freaking cute. And then we get a little bit of Percy not accepting something, like it doesn't make sense for him. This is probably when Sally tells him that he's a half-blood. And we also get this background dialogue of half-bloods are not safe in the world. We get a bit of the Minotaur and the car crash again, and Chiron saying that Percy's father needs his help. And he also explains the quest again and says if the Master Bolt is not returned, there will be a war. We get some fight scenes, then we see the trio through a foggy woods, which is probably the fields of Asphodel based on an interview of one of the creators. Then we have a shot of what is presumably a camp meeting with Dionysus and Chiron in the middle, and then a few campers around them. We get to know that every quest needs 3 people, and this is where we get a shot of Annabeth and Grover each. We also hear Luke telling Percy that Demigod process reality differently, and that they have to find out what Percy's good at. They show one example, Percy trying out archery, and when he tries to shoot a prop that looks like a hydra, he misses completely and almost shoots some of his fellow campers. And this is where we get again a lot of the classic book humor when he says, "Should I try again?" And the other campers were like, no, don't. I love that scene, and I really like that they incorporated the humor we get from the books. Percy feels like there's no place for him, and Annabeth tells him, "You still don't get where you fit into all of this," which is the I think, the first time we have dialogue from Annabeth in one of the teasers/trailers, and I love it. We get some of fighting monsters isn't easy, and then we come into the casino, the Lotus Hotel and Casino. And who do we meet? Hermes, aka Lin-Manuel Miranda. This is like just a shot where he says, "Welcome, demigods," and I'm like, what is happening? And for this shot in particular, I will say something else later when I talk about the episode predictions. We also see Percy fighting with Ares, and then the iconic Minotaur scene in the rain, and Sally telling Percy, and I quote, "Perseus, hold fast, brave the storm." And then we see Percy fighting with the Minotaur. And this little speech from Sally is apparently something she tells him earlier in the first episode. And then the last bit is also something comedic. It's a shot of Percy during Capture the Flag and telling probably Luke, "Maybe I won't even need a sword." And then it's a cut to the Chimera, and then back to Percy, "I'm gonna need a sword," which is Percy Jackson humor at its finest. And the last teaser so far was released on the 26th of November 2023, and it's titled Power. We get a lot of recycled scenes, let's say, and I'm just gonna focus on the new ones. The background dialogue, for example, is new. It's a speech by Chiron to Percy, probably telling him that he is not powerless and that the gods have something in store for him. As for the new scenes, we see some different shots from Percy's fight at the beach with the other campers, and we get a good look at Clarice. We also see Percy in the ocean with a glowing trident over his head, and Annabeth is watching him from the beach. I heard that this scene got mixed reactions because it's like somewhat of a spoiler, although it happens in the first 2 episodes. I personally don't mind it. And then we have some previous scenes like the fight with Ares and Grover being pulled into a pit, but these are like a bit extended or from different views. And the last shot we see is the trio running away from Cerberus. For now, these are the teasers and trailers we have, and I think we got a good look into what's to come. Now I want to have a look at the episode titles. On the 27th of November, the Percy series official social media accounts posted the episode titles, and much to our delight, they were chapter titles straight from the book. And yeah, these are the 8 chapters/episode titles. We start off with "I accidentally vaporized my pre-algebra teacher," which is the first chapter in The Lightning Thief. Then we have one of my favorite chapter titles for the second episode, "I become Supreme Lord of the Bathroom." Then number 3 is "We visit the Garden Gnome Emporium." And number 4 is "I plunge to my death." The 5th episode is titled "God Buys Us Cheeseburgers." And the 6th is "We Take a Zebra to Vegas." And the last 2 are also some iconic chapter titles. They are "We Find Out the Truth," sort of. And the last one is "The Prophecy Comes True." Very ominous. Now, this is where I get into my theory/spoilery territory. So if you have not read the books and want to go into the series blind, maybe skip ahead to the end or come back later to see if my theories are correct. And for the next few episodes, we will talk about each episode in detail. There will also be like a theory part at the end for the next episode to keep spoilers away from new fans. So here are my guesses for the structure of the series and what part of the book they put into which episode. So in the first episode, I accidentally vaporized my pre-algebra teacher. I'm gonna go out on them. We're gonna go to the Met. We're gonna go to Yancey Academy. We're gonna meet Gabe and Sally, and we're also gonna go to Montauk, to the cabin with Percy and Sally. There, Sally will talk with Percy and tell him that he's a half-blood, and I think we will get as the finale the Minotaur fight of this episode. And these are things straight from the book. Here are some things I think that are additional we don't have in the book, like small Percy and his childhood. We get a bit of backstory on Sally and Poseidon, and a bit more on how school is and how Percy's home life with Smelly Gabe is. I'm just gonna reiterate, these are all just theories. None of this has been confirmed or anything, so don't take my word for it. Then let's move on to the second episode, I Become Supreme Lord of the Bathroom. Here I think it starts off with Percy waking up at camp. Oh, before that, one thing I wanted to add to the first episode. I don't know if we get like these end credit things we have in Marvel movies, but I would love if there we have like the first set of credits and then we get the scene of Annabeth telling Percy you drool in your sleep. But it could also happen in episode 2, so just saying. Speaking of episode 2, let's continue there. We have Percy waking up at camp, meeting Annabeth and Luke. Percy moving into the Hermes cabin, and also Luke trying to help Percy figure out what he's good at. This is where we get the archery scene probably we had in the trailer, and also Percy trying to forge a weapon. We had a picture of that in the tie-in edition of Percy Jackson. And we're probably gonna meet Clarice and have the bathroom incident, hence the episode title. And I think we're also gonna get Capture the Flag and the claiming of Percy Jackson. For the third episode, I think we're gonna get the Oracle/quest either at the end of the second episode or the beginning of the third episode. This is also where our trio will leave the camp, and we have the bus with the Furies, the return of Mrs. Dodds and her sisters, and we also gonna meet and fight Medusa. For the fourth episode, we're gonna have a train ride to St. Louis, where we're gonna see the Arch and go up there, and this is also where we'll meet Echidna and the Chimera, and where Percy will fall out of into the Mississippi, and we'll meet the Nereid that tells Percy to go to Santa Monica when he comes to LA. Here's one thing I'm pretty sure we'll get in this episode because we've seen a few shots of it in the trailer. We're gonna see Annabeth fighting the Chimera as well, because in the books Percy was alone fighting the Chimera, and I think here we'll have the trio banding together and fighting the Chimera together. In episode 5 we will meet Ares for the first time, but before that we'll hopefully have this Iris message to camp, like catching up with Luke and seeing what's going on there. After we meet Ares and he gives us a little side quest, we're gonna go to Waterland, to the Tunnel of Love, and I think this is where we will meet our first god that actually has not appeared in the book. It's Hephaestus, and I think we also, from what we've seen in the trailers, gonna have a little more extravagant Tunnel of Love, because we saw a few shots with gold statues and lighting on the wall, and I think this is gonna be Waterland. In the 6th episode, we take a zebra to Vegas. We're gonna have the animals in a transporter, and we're gonna ride in the back with them to Vegas, where we'll release them into the wild, and we will get to the Lotus Hotel and Casino. I hope this is where we get a bit more of Annabeth background, since we had one of our favorite chats, Percy and Annabeth, during the ride with the animals in this transporter. And we're also going to meet Hermes. And since it is Lin-Manuel Miranda as Hermes in the Lotus Casino, I've heard a lot of theories about it online, and I would love to have this. This episode should be a musical. I'm telling you, I freaking love it. And also what I would love in this episode, if we get a little hint at the D'Angelo siblings, because I'm not sure if in book timeline, if I think they got out of the Lotus Casino before our trio arrived, but it would be cool just from the behind, or where we're gonna hear a little Nico yelling, "Bianca, wait for me," or something like that. It would just fill my heart with joy. Then in episode 7 we're gonna go to LA, specifically first Santa Monica, having a little catch-up chat with a Nereid and getting our express ticket out of the underworld. Before we even go to the underworld, we're gonna meet Charon, and we're also gonna meet Cerberus. And this is also where our treacherous flying shoes will try to pull Rover into Tartarus, and we're gonna confront Hades. I think if they're gonna cut something from the book that's not really that relevant to the story, it might be the Krusty scene with, what's his name? I think Pro Krusty's is his name, because I don't think it's this big of a deal, and we can cut it. We also had a lot of shots from the underworld where it's just Grover and Percy. But I think it's not like Annabeth is totally gone. I think she's just wearing her invisibility cap and she's invisible. And for the final episode, I think we'll have the big fight with Ares and the return of the Master Bolt to Mount Olympus. And this is where Percy will first meet his dad. Maybe we've seen Poseidon first in some flashbacks or some cutaway scenes, but this is where Percy and his dad first come face to face. After this exchange, we're gonna go back to camp. And have a nice rest of the summer until the end, where we have our big reveal, the big twist at the end, Luke's betrayal. And after that, we're gonna have a reunion with Sally, and Gabe is gonna die, hopefully. Like, Sally will kill Gabe. I will love that. So these are my predictions for the episode as a whole. And in about 2 days, when this comes out, we will find out if I was right with the first two. And I'm not sure if I'm gonna do like one longer episode of Delphi Dispatches for the first 2 episodes of Percy Jackson, because I'm not sure if I can mentally handle pausing in between them, but you'll see next week what I have to say about it. Now it's time for trivia trials. Let's reveal last episode's answer. The first question was, what classic book did Rick Riordan recently read in its original language, according to one of the interviews I mentioned? The interview was the New York Times interview, and the original language was Italian, because the answer is Dante's Divine Comedy. As far as I know, he also mentioned it in one of his blog posts, so you could also know it from there. The second question was, which of the cast of Percy Jackson and the Olympians has played a role in the Superman series Smallville? This is Jessica Parker Kennedy as Plastique. So now on to today's questions. The first one is, since Arian is playing the satyr, which is half goat, he is often referred to as the goat, in capital letters, of course. What does goat mean in this context? The second question is, what is the name of the cover artist that sings Riptide in the trailers? You have until next episode until I reveal the correct answers. If you want, you can DM me your answers on Instagram at Delphi_Dispatches_pod. We're gonna conclude with one of my favorite segments we do here, the mythical music. Like I said during the news part, the soundtrack will release on the 22nd. So I'm not going to include a song of the Percy Jackson's soundtrack this time. This week I'm going to include a song by J. Maya. She makes really cool music, a lot of them inspired by Greek mythology and literature in general. And the one I'm picking today, so maybe I'm gonna pick another one another time of hers. Today I'm picking Library Card because I can hardcore see myself in the lyrics of this song. So give it a listen, follow the playlist for being up to date on that. And that concludes another adventure with Delphi Dispatches. Thank you, Demigods, for joining me on today's quest. Please consider subscribing to the podcast, and if you want to connect with me on Instagram, just follow at Delphi_Dispatches_pod for updates and a fun community. This is Martina signing off until next time, and remember, the real world is where the monsters are.